Hello and welcome to our latest video of Divorcing Dilemmas. For those of you who are watching for the first time, my name is Amanda Porter. I'm a family law attorney, and every month I like to interview a different professional about topics that might be helpful to people who are going through a divorce, and sometimes even for those who aren't, but especially for people going through a divorce. So with me this month is Kat Cottle from Monarch Professional Services. Hi, Kat.
Hello.
Welcome. I really appreciate you being here. Kat is going to talk to us this month about budgeting. And before we start talking to her, I wanted to explain briefly why I thought this was a good topic. First of all, if you or your spouse are going to request spousal maintenance, you will need to figure out what your budgets are. That's what spousal maintenance depends on, is each person's budget. However, even if nobody is requesting spousal maintenance, when you are separating and you're no longer going to be living together, even if nobody's incomes are changing, expenses are going to change. The amount of income available for the expenses is going to change. And so I think it's helpful for everybody to have gone through and figured out what their budget is. So, Kat, talk to us a little bit about how do you recommend going about that's something that sounds simple, but something a lot of my clients struggle with is figuring out what their budget is or will be.
Right, exactly. So I have a really handy tool that I have created that I use personally for our finances and our budget within our household, which I'm offering to anybody who would like, any one of your clients that sees this video that would like to have it, just have them email me and I'm happy to share it.
Great.
But to start, the best way to start, because that's always the hardest part, is sitting down and figuring out how to start it, is to look back to your past 30 days and enter that into a budget tool or write it down, how much you spent on groceries, what your utilities were, kind of break it down based on what you spent in the prior month. And then that gives you a good idea of kind of what you spend normally. And after 3 months, you'll really get a good idea of what you're spending anyway, but you don't want to go back 3 months because that just sounds daunting. So go back 30 days and then move forward with your current month. So now we're at the end of May, tomorrow's June. So we can say, go back through May, see what you spent, and then see what June, and then set your numbers for June that you want to try and hit those numbers and stay within those budget lines. Because ideally you want it to be those numbers, you want to be targets that you want to hit throughout the month, and ideally you shouldn't go over, so that you're staying within the limits of the income you have coming in. So it's a good guide to show you where to go.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think it's so important too when you talked about going back and seeing what you've actually been spending. I know sometimes when people are just trying to guess, which
Right.
I've people doing, sometimes they do not guess accurately. I've shared the story with you before. I was talking to somebody once, it was her and 2 kids, and she was estimating she spent $100 on groceries a month. And I told her that seemed low. And she said, oh, well, but I always buy organic. And I was like, well, organic's more expensive. And so then you were able to get a more realistic number. But when you just guess, you frequently underestimate. So it's really important to look at what you've actually been spending.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have 4 children, 2 dogs. 1 is a brand new baby. Our grocery bill is insane.
Sure it is.
We were just looking at it last night going, how can we bring that down a smidge? Like, let's challenge ourselves. And that's kind of fun. That can be the fun thing about budgeting, is challenging yourself to come under the number so that you have extra to put somewhere, like toward a family trip, or maybe you want to treat yourself. If you're a woman, treat yourself to a nail and spa day or something, but put it towards something fun for yourself and goal yourself that way. And the budget helps you do that by updating it weekly. So that was one thing I was going to talk about is, now you have the tool, you input the numbers, you put your goals in place for the month, and now you want to make sure you're sticking to it. So on a weekly basis, I recommend like scheduling Fridays. I like Friday because Friday's payday for my husband, and I go in on Friday and I enter everything and figure out what bills need to be paid for the next 2 weeks out of that paycheck. And then I know how much is left to allocate to the rest of the categories in my budget.
Yeah.
So, because ideally you want to get down to like a $0 budget. I used to follow Dave Ramsey, and he has a great budget guideline as well. And it's nice to make sure every dollar is allocated for.
Absolutely.
So you don't have extra or going over.
Yeah, it's so easy to waste money. And, you know, I mean, that's a joke, right? You go to Target for a $5 tube of toothpaste and you come out $200 worth of stuff.
I saw a great meme about Target that said, you don't go into Target and tell it what you need, or you don't tell Target what you need. You let Target tell you what you need.
And I've been guilty of that sometimes. Absolutely. So, and I think what's important too.
It's never a cheap bill when that happens.
And I think what's great too about whether they're using, you know, your tool that you've offered or another tool, is I think it can also be helpful to make sure you're not missing categories, because it's really easy.
Yeah.
Or when you're going back and looking, it's really easy to forget. You know, you're probably not buying toilet paper every single month.
Yeah.
But you do use it, I hope, every single month. And so, you know, those are the kind of months. It's easy to forget about those. It's easy to remember like rent or your car payments.
Right.
But you want to make sure you get like the toiletries and, you know, shampoo and soap and
yes. And I also recommend something that we are now adding to our budget is the lifestyle that we want to have. We add lines in. So like we put in like a date night or a romance category, or we want to make sure that we're saving for any trips. If we want to start taking family vacations, then we added that line in, and we just put like, you know, even if you just start out with like 10, 15 bucks a month in those categories, just so you get used to building that into your lifestyle for whatever it is. Like maybe you want to get a dog for your family and you start saving up to save up for that dog, but you want to make sure you're saving for it on a monthly basis. So for example, you know, dogs are $200 to $300 when you adopt them. You can start saving, like if you want it in 3 months, you know, start saving $75 a month to get those dogs or get that dog or something.
And then it's nice because it's not just the cost of the dog. Like it's not the cost of having the kid.
Yeah. You're not reacting to the expense then. You're planning the expense and letting it work for you. Budget. A lot of people think budgeting is this awful, evil tool that is going to rule my life and I'm not going to have any fun because I budget my money. But the point is to budget the fun into your budget. And and plan for it. Like go have fun, have a fun category where you and your family go do a movie night. You have $50 in your budget for a movie night at once a month if you want to go big and go to a movie theater. Or maybe you put $25 in and you have popcorn and movie in. I don't know. Something.
And then you can have fun without feeling guilty.
Exactly. You have planned for the expense. It's there and you get to go forward with your life.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Were there any other little tips that you wanted to add, Kat?
Let's see. I think I talked about scheduling a date and time on a weekly basis. At the end of the month, I think this was the only other one. Just make sure at the end of the month you are setting a time where you review the prior month so that you can see how things happened. If things went over and you need to adjust, like maybe you thought groceries was only $500 a month for you and your 2 or 3 kids or something. Mm-hmm. However, you found you spent $800. So maybe bump it up to that 800 mark and then see where you come in the next month and see if somewhere between 5 and 800 is where you live, then adjust from there. If you maybe want to start couponing or speaking of the Target thing, maybe you use Cartwheel, or maybe you want to have your groceries shipped to you so that you don't go into Target and find some other things that Target thinks you need.
Yeah. They're so yeah, exactly.
So like those are the things. And then we kind of talked about budgeting in the fun, but also budgeting for future expenses. Like we know we're going to have car tabs. We know that we're going to have to pay for insurance if you pay for it annually versus monthly.
Yep.
Christmas happens every year, and we always act like, oh my God, we have to spend $200 or $100 per kid or something, and how am I going to come up with that extra money? But if you know how much you want to spend per kid, then you save, $25, $50 a month or something for your family.
And then you have it already. Yeah, exactly.
And then it's whether you take the money out and put it in an envelope, or you create a separate checking account or savings account for it to put it in and save it there. That's up to you. But
Yeah.
I definitely recommend pulling that money out that you allocated somewhere so that you don't think, ooh, I have all this extra money in my checking account.
Christmas for mom.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are all some really great tips. And so if you would like to contact Kat to get her budgeting tool or to talk to her about any of her other services, she does bookkeeping for businesses as well as helping out some individuals. Please contact her. Her contact information will either be below the video or next to it, depending on what platform. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Kat.
Thank you.